I know now that you
That's
said
where
it.
I'm at, up that way. And you just like up the street from the mall,
All right.
Atlantic Terminal to walk
We
right.
are, we are live on everything. Let's pray. God, we thank you and we praise you for this privilege once again to come and read, study, and share your word. We thank you for the desire to know you better through your word. We ask that you will bless us now, help us to focus and keep our minds on what we're doing here, God. Let all the distractions and the concerns of this world be put on hold, be put on pause so that we can hear with our spirits. That's my prayer, and I ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, so we're getting to a point where I was looking forward to. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting close. So let us continue. We've been looking at Genesis, uh, going chapter by chapter for the most part, and we are looking tonight at Genesis chapter 32. Genesis chapter 32. If you remember last week, uh, Jacob had got to a point where he decided to take his two wives, his two concubines, to whom they had bore him children as well, a total of 11, and have decided to go back to his country. So they kind of left by cloak of darkness, so to speak. But they didn't get far. Laban went after them, caught up with them. I think it was like 7 days later. And Jacob, now with all of his wealth and all of his property and all of his herds and all of that stuff like that, they had this meeting to wit. Laban was warned by God not to say anything good or bad to Jacob. And so, as it turns out, he went on his way, and they departed. They departed peacefully. In fact, they kind of made a covenant between each other, and then they went their separate ways. So we're going to pick it up from that's kind of like. Go ahead.
You, it said that God said, "Don't say anything to him, good or bad."
Right.
How? So where do you go from there? I mean, why?
Well, just what he did. You know, I think when God said don't, and what you're referring to is somewhere around chapter 31, and it was verse 24 where God came to Laban and in a dream by night and said to him, "Be careful that you speak to Jacob neither good nor bad." So, and what Laban did, therefore, was not to speak good or bad. He didn't. Well, he kind of spoke good, but he didn't. He didn't. He just laid out the facts. You know, you got my kids, you got my wealth, my grands, you've done this, done that. Now you're leaving, and you left by cloak of darkness. You didn't tell me you were leaving, and it's like you're just sneaking away and like you're robbing me, and yet, what can I do about it? And so it was like a neutral. He kind of spoke neutrally, outlining the facts, which are pretty negative if you come across negative, but you know what I'm saying. So, all right, you good?
So they made
What?
that
Mitzvah.
Yeah, but what?
I was just wondering if it was to change Laban's attitude. God changed it because I don't know. It's just
Oh well,
it's hard to. How do you?
I would
speak of good
imagine.
nor bad?
I didn't realize that was your question. I didn't understand that to be your question. Yeah, I think that's why God came to Laban and said, "Don't speak to him good or bad," because I suspect that Laban was going to be pretty. Yeah, Laban might have, taken his daughters back by force, He might have taken all of the property back by force. He may have done something like that. So yeah, I didn't understand that's what you were asking, but yeah, I agree that God told him don't say anything good or bad, and so Laban just laid out the facts. But yeah, I don't think if God hadn't come to him, I think there would have been some explaining to do on this part of Jacob. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
So let's move on. Genesis chapter 32. We're going to start reading at verse 1.
Genesis 32, verse 1. So Jacob went on his way, and the angel of God met him. When Jacob saw them, he said, "This is God's camp." And he called the name of that place Mahanaim. Then Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau his brother in the land of Seir, the country of Edom. And he commanded them, saying, "Speak thus to my lord Esau. Thus your servant Jacob says, I have dwelt with Laban and stayed there until now. I have oxen, donkeys, flocks, and mouths, and male and female servants. I have sent to my lord that I may find favor in your sight."
All right, let's stop right there. What's going on here?
Jacob sent messages to his brother Esau saying, "Look, I'm ready to come back home now. I have oxen." I guess he was trying to let him know, I'm not coming back as a poor, looking for you to take care of me. I have oxen, donkeys, and that, this and that.
Right.
And I'm ready to come home.
Yes.
already.
This is probably it's not a stupid question, but to simply say, why is he doing this at all? Why is he sending any kind of delegation, whatever messengers? Why is he sending these messengers at all? Why not just show up and say, "Hey, surprise"?
To see first how his state of mind would be by him coming back right now.
Yeah, remember.
Well, we need to go a little further than that.
They left on bed.
Right.
They left on
didn't
bad
leave.
terms.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Okay. So I just wanted to make sure that they left on bad terms, and that I think we all would agree is an understatement
Mm-hmm.
to say that he left.
Esau was gonna kill him.
Right. Okay. Next question is roughly how long has it been since he's been back home? Anybody remember? Roughly.
About 20 years.
Close to
7, 7, and 6, I think.
I thought it was
Well,
10.
seven and six is not.
7,
7 and 6 is correct. Right. 7, 7, and 6. Right. What were you saying, Sister Pat? We'll go over it. Did you say
No,
something?
I didn't know. I was just saying about 10. I don't know.
No, it's 20. It's around 20 years. 7 years Jacob worked for Rachel, but he didn't get Rachel.
Right.
So his father told him to work another 7 years for Rachel, and then so he got both of them for 14 years of work. And then Jacob says he said, "Listen, I've worked 6 years and I've done this for you and this and that, and I haven't got nothing for myself." So yeah, so we're looking at 20 years, right? So it's been 20 years. And I'm saying that the reason why I brought that up is because, again, one would think that his brother would be happy to see him, and why not just go and surprise him? But to say that they left on bad terms is an understatement. They left on very bad terms, and so hence there's an old expression, an old joke that I guess it is, where this guy he would go home, and before he would go in the house, you know what I'm saying? Is it a joke or is it some story or something? It's a joke. The guy when he would go home,
After a night out of
Oh, is that what it is? After a night out,
when he would go
when he would go home,
in order to
he would open the door and throw his hat in the house. He wouldn't go in, he would throw his hat in the house. And if the hat came flying back out, he knew this wasn't a good sign. This wasn't a good night. Right. So in a manner of speaking, that's what Jacob is doing with this messenger.
Like
He's
testing the water.
testing the waters, yeah, just to kind of see
See what the temperature.
what what the
Mhm.
situation is. So we picked up that we stopped at verse 5. Let's keep reading.
Yeah, 6.
Yeah.
Then the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, "We came to your brother Esau, and he also is coming to meet you, and 400 men are with him."
Okay. So we'll pause there.
Wow.
What?
What a welcoming committee.
Yeah, 400.
Mm.
That's
Doesn't sound welcoming to me.
does that sound welcoming? I need 400 men. Maybe they're bodyguards. Bodyguards.
That's not the
400.
400 bodyguards. Right. Okay. All right. Well, let's see if Jacob has the same thoughts as we do. Verse 7.
So Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed,
Well, it sounds like he has the same thoughts as we do. And
and he divided the people that were with him and the flocks and herds and camels into 2 companies.
okay. Now, what does that mean? Well, let me go ahead.
He's trying to, so when if his brother attacks, he'll only get half of what he's bringing. The other half will be able to escape.
Right. Right. That is the second question I was going to ask. The question I was actually asking was, what does it mean? And what it meant is that he's just making a separation. He's separating, what he has, he's separating into 2 parts. Why is what Sister Nicole answered, spoke to. Okay, so that if there is something that goes down, the first group will be the unfortunate sacrifice, and the rest will be able to get away. I assure you that in that first group were none of his sons, none of his wives. In fact, he probably sent his worst employees and his worst, the staff, the chefs that couldn't cook, and
I thought he was divvying out to give his brother to get on his good side. Like, this is for you. I'm giving you.
Well, we'll
half
see
of what I have.
we'll see something later, but that it was.
But that's not the case now.
Well, no. We'll see something on that line a little bit later, but once again, the real motivation was to protect.
Okay.
Let's keep reading. You'll see what I mean. We can talk about it in more detail later. Where are we?
Verse 8.
Go ahead.
And he said, "If Esau comes to the one company and attacks it, then the other company which is left will escape."
Uh-huh.
Then Jacob said, "O God of my father Abraham."
Okay, so pause. So we understand that was the reason, right? To just in case. Go ahead.
Then Jacob said, "O God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, the Lord who said to me, 'Return to your country and to your family, and I will deal well with you.' I am not worthy of the least of all the mercies and of all the truth which you have shown your servant. For I crossed over this Jordan with my staff, and now I have become 2 companies."
Okay, so what is he saying here? He's just reflecting on what God has done for him and where he brought him from. And when he says, "I crossed over with my staff," he's not talking about his workers. What he's saying is that when I left my country, when I left my mother and father, I left with nothing more than the clothes on my back and whatever else, and my staff, this physical stick. He said, "But here I come back, and I'm coming back with all of this wealth. God, you did all of this. And I thank you, and I bless you, and I glorify you for all of this. Yet I am afraid," and what is it? "I'm afraid and distressed."
So the staff is the stick?
The staff, yeah, that's referring to that
thing that the shepherds.
that the shepherd, right? And we hear in the 23rd Psalm, just for the sake of discussing it, "Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me." But the two things have a different purpose. The rod and staff have 2 separate purposes. The staff is, go ahead.
I think this one of them is so he can walk well, and the other one is so he can direct or something. Direct, like
Full sentence. Direct.
all of the
The word you're looking for is, anybody?
Flock.
Flocks. Yeah, the flocks. Right. It's a tool that they use to keep the flocks in line.
What the staff?
The staff.
Mhm.
All right.
So
And,
what's the rod?
no, I think it's the different. The rod keeps them in right.
And the staff is just,
The staff is more of a help, just to
Okay.
just to walking and stuff, and reaching things that are high up and stuff like that. Shells and stuff like that. Yeah. So but that's the idea. Okay. And so he said, I left with just my staff, and now I'm coming back with all of this. Where are you?
Verse 11.
Verse 11.
Deliver me, I pray, from the hands of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, lest he come and attack me and the mother with the children. For you said, I will surely treat you well, and make your descendants as the sands of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude.
Okay, let's stop there. So what do we know? What do we see here?
faithlessness.
We
In the part of
see-
Jacob, he's fearing, he's not trusting. God said he got you.
Yes.
And yet, I'm still kind of,
Yeah, but let's talk about the kind that he is. Why is he like that?
Because he knows what he's
Because you
doing.
know what he did.
Right. And what is it that he did? Not specifically, although you can be specific, but what did he do that was such a big deal?
He stole his brother's birthright.
Blessing.
He stole his brother's birthright. That's an incomplete sentence.
And his, like she said, his blessing.
And his blessing, right? So he stole his brother. So I mean, like, so what?
That is a big deal.
It was a big
And
deal.
then this is the first time,
Say it again.
I think I was cutting somebody off, I'm sorry. No, I was just saying that the big deal is, he did that, his brother tried to kill him, he fled, this was their first time in 20 years.
Right.
And then the brother sends him a message saying, yeah, I'm gonna meet you halfway with all these, so of course, you know, the fear, the anxiety, all of that, but so that's what I kind of see, but what I was looking at was, verse 9, because he did those things, you know, just like we do some things, and then here it showed he prayed.
Right. Yes.
So my question then becomes, just like us, when you know you have, is it that Jacob did something, you know, like coming to himself in the flesh, I'm afraid, I gotta face this. I'm getting ready to come face to face with someone and a whole group of, you know, I can't even imagine, and I don't know what they plan. I don't even know. They might be coming to surround. They might come, whatever. I
Right.
may get my, you know, I may get not paid back, but I may get, you know,
Just deserves.
I'm looking for the word, like when you, somebody does something, you retaliation.
Retribution.
So I would
Yes.
imagine, I'm sorry?
I said retribution, but retaliation is fine.
Okay, so he has all these things going on in his mind and not knowing where his head is or where the 400 are gonna come from. Are they already there? They hiding. But what I found, and my question is, with all of that rightfully in the flesh he's feeling, what I found to be, I saw it as good, is that in all of those feelings he prayed.
Okay. Yeah, it is not to suggest, and maybe you are, but it's not to suggest that Jacob did not know the Lord and that he didn't pray. He didn't pray before.
Wow, right.
Before, right.
Right. So
Well, the only reason I was just bringing that up is because I think I heard someone say that he was faithless.
yeah.
I said,
But as we read 9, I kind of didn't get that part. So I said, let me just throw it out because maybe I'm not understanding what I'm reading.
Well, let's be clear. Let's be clear about something, because you're not suggesting. I'm sure you're not suggesting that faithless people don't pray.
Oh, no.
Right. So the fact that, in fact, I would suggest to you that faithlessness causes people to play very often. Right. Right. So, but so yeah, we see certainly that he had the sense enough in his fear and anxiety and despair to look to the Lord. And what he does in that prayer is that he reminds God of what he promised and all of that type of stuff, which kind of speaks to the faithlessness thing, because like, why are you reminding me? I'm God. Like, I don't need reminding, but it is the fear and anxiety in him that he's just like, listen, Lord, didn't you say you were going to take care of me? How in the world can you have me about to be attacked by my brothers and my brother and his tribe? Let me just correct something.
Okay.
I think that, though it's not a big deal, but I think you said that his brother tried to kill him. And he never got the opportunity, because if you remember, Rachel sent Jacob off before the brother could get opportunity to kill him. But what else do we see here? We see something else here.
He still has fear, yet he still has fear, and you're not supposed to have fear because God is with us.
Yeah, okay, all right. Y'all don't push me on this. Please don't push me on this, all right?
I'm in the flesh.
Please don't push me on this, all right? But I feel like I'm getting pushed. So
I'm not
please don't
gonna
push me on this.
push you.
The fact is that Jacob was afraid, and no, you're right. Everybody's
we
actually,
never get afraid.
but
I'm in the flesh.
you know, the fact is that's a given. So yes, he was afraid, and in his particular case, what he chose to do was to pray. And
Wise
we're
man.
not, you see, all too often, although I realize that the Spirit of God speaks to you and shows you some things and so on and so forth, and that's great and wonderful. We just have to understand that those types of messages, those type of lessons are there in, we can always see, but I assumed that y'all understood that, yes, he was afraid and but I'm looking for something else, because I assume that y'all got that. If we need to go back there, then fine, we will. But I just assumed that everybody agreed that he was afraid, or that he was faithless, and that his prayer was, as a result of that, and so on and so forth.
Maybe I shouldn't have used the word prayer. I see a little bit of doubt.
Well, either one of those words is going to push me even further. So all I'm simply saying is, no, you're right. You're right. We see faithless, we see doubt, and we see, him praying. And so we see all of that. But there is something else that's tied in. It all is tied in, but you're just looking kind of at the, let me just do this. Okay, let me just do this. Jacob is, yes, he's faithless and he's fearful and he's anxious, and the Bible says that he was in distress. Is that what it says? With
With the 400.
where you? What verse did it say?
7, you're looking for afraid and
Verse
distress?
7,
He
yeah.
was afraid
Afraid, he was
and
afraid
distressed.
and in distress, and he was all of those things. And so, everything is true that everyone said, but what I'm getting at is this, that it has been 20 years, and this is the point that I was hoping to get to, and it was implied in everything you guys said, but you just touch on the superficial fears that we all get afraid, we all do this, and everybody is right when you say that, and we all this and that and the other thing, and that's all fine and wonderful and great. But I think what is helpful here, or what we need to see, and I know we see it, but to actually, for the sake of those that might listen somewhere, that is that this is a fear and an anxiety and a distress and a despair that that is 20 years old. Okay, it's a 20-year-old fear,
Yeah.
and the fact that, yes, it's implied that yes, he shouldn't, but if we want to look at something, let's talk for a moment about a 20-year fear.
I was saying, I understand that it's a 20-year fear, and you were saying in his prayer, we see that he sort of reminds him. So maybe it's that same thing we said before, when it comes to faith, like he did it for that one, will he do it for me? After 20 years, maybe I need to remind, maybe he forgot about that, or maybe
Yeah.
he's not going to do it.
Or
now.
he's just
So
that afraid that
it's
the
been
20
so
years don't
long.
matter. Right.
Yeah, that's
But let's talk about a 20-year fear. That's my point. Let's talk about a 20-year fear, or a 20-year burden, a 20-year cross, whatever word you want to use. Let's talk about that for a little bit.
What, if I may, I can kind of see a couple of things, but one of the things that can come out of that is that 20, well, you would look at the time and one may say, well, I would think that it has gotten lighter. The load has gotten lighter. Sometimes folks don't even know why they don't speak to each other. It's been so long. I just know I don't speak to you. So you would think that after the gap, it becomes lighter. But sometimes, and that may be true, but in some situations, it might just even be the trigger of the sight after 20 years.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Let's keep going.
Just a few things, but
Yes, but let's keep going on that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the trigger. I wanna say something about the trigger. Okay, so Jacob is distressed because, and it's just the fact that Esau is coming with such great force. It's just rekindling the fear,
Mhm.
and and it's like rekindling the fear, and so he was already afraid because he was sending a messenger to see, and
It's been 20 years. Go ahead.
I have a question. Do we know if Jacob had any contact with?
We don't get that.
How did
we
he
don't,
know
we-
where to send the messengers? So was
He's
he
going
keeping
home.
up with?
He's going home,
Oh, so Esau stayed home.
apparently,
Okay.
because he's on his way home.
Okay.
And so he says, send a messenger. He sent his messengers, right?
So
So he's assuming, if not have heard over the years, we don't have any scriptural information that says that they stayed in touch, but I can only imagine that. Remember, right? Remember,
and Laban are
right? Laban and his sister. So that's relationship. They may have been Laban's people, and maybe even Jacob's people. They may have even sent packages and stuff like that back and forth. You know what I mean? But physically to go back is
different.
is not there. Yeah, were you gonna say something else?
No, I'm gonna hold on.
So we have this anxiety and this concern and the whole trigger thing and all of that after 20 years, and I just what I was more
Children, 1 second.
go ahead.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to add to mine and also, and the other last thing, I'm sorry to cut you off, but
No,
I just triggered the thought of also, it's 20 years, I don't know the trigger, or, just the sight may be the trigger, but then sometimes people don't let things go. So my thing, Jacob, I thought that everything would be okay. Well, let me take Esau. Esau thinks everything's gonna be okay. He's bringing these guys and this for a whole different purpose. It's like based on a peaceful thing. But the Jacob, I'm still in that 20 years. It's been 20 years, but my thoughts, like I'm still in that first day of the 20 years.
Right. I understand what you're saying.
So I just wanted to add that part because people heal different, people grow different.
Right.
Sometimes people don't want to let things go.
Right.
Sometimes people like to just be the victim and oh me, oh my type of.
Right.
So that's all. I won't say anything.
Right. Absolutely. Go ahead.
Well, the thing about it though is that the fear is there, and the thing about it is that he has a very good reason to be fearful because of the conditions on which he left, and that just doesn't go away once especially not if you have you might not have had contact, no apologies, no forgiveness, no.
Right.
So it's like,
well, you've made my point. Between you both made my point, and this is what I wanted to that's where I wanted to kind of get to. The superficial stuff, not that it's superficial, but it's just to simply say, I don't think anybody in here, under the sound of my voice, as it were, would be surprised that there would be some anxiety and some concern and some fear and all of that type stuff if one were to be going back to their family or to a family member that they had really hurt and but I think also that most of us would say, I think Sister Pat said it or alluded to it, but after 20 years, you have a certain expectation that it may have diminished, right? I mean, if you think about somebody, in fact, let me put this out there as a rhetorical question. Do you know of, and can you think of someone who 20 years ago wronged you? And if you can think of, well, let me, can you think of someone who wronged you 20 years ago? Okay. I think that it's fair to say that you were wronged one way or another 20 years ago. Okay. But when asked, do you remember? Let me go back again and say, I am willing to bet dollars to donuts that 20 years ago, you were wronged by several people. Okay. Several people 20 years ago. But I will also bet dollars to donuts that when I ask you, can you remember someone that harmed you, that wronged you 20 years ago, you weeded out, it all happened just like that, but you weeded out most of those people that wronged you 20 years ago, and you only remember the one or two that was, you were wronged and it may have really upset you. That person might have, okay, let me go a step further before I say that. So now you've got those one or two people that wronged you 20 years ago that you actually consciously remember, right? And then my third question is, how do you feel about them today, right? And today you might say, well, you probably will ask me, do you mean today right now? And my answer will be yes, I mean today right now. Stop interrupting the Bible study class. And you would say, well, now it's not a big deal. In fact, now I don't even care. But I remember that they wronged me, right? But now 20 years later, I don't really, I'm past that, right? There are some who remember being wronged 20 years ago and still remember it today. And they are okay until, like what you guys were saying, that trigger. And that trigger could be seeing that person or hearing that person or whatever. But very often, that trigger is not so much seeing that person as much as it is recollecting the pain, grabbing, re-embracing the anger and the pain, taking yourself back. Now, I realize that there are people who wronged me 20 years ago, and I was able to put it in the right place. But when I saw them 20 years later, they wronged me again. And so I'm not talking about that, though. For this lesson's sake, I'm not talking about that type of situation, okay? We're just talking about someone that wronged you. Okay, now, here's the thing, though. We have is everybody following what I said? Everybody's good with what I just said? Okay, but what we just did is not Jacob's situation. Here's the question now. Can you remember someone you wronged 20 years ago? And whether or not because most people will say, well, because I hear somebody wants to ask it right now. Do you mean that I wronged them or they felt they were wronged by me? See, I know people. I know people. So the thing is that I don't want to get into that. You know, God knows, they know, and I don't particularly care. I don't even want to get into it. But the point is that but what I am saying is that if you can think of someone can you think of someone who you wronged 20 years ago? And yeah, they may have perceived it as being wrong, whatever. But if you can think of someone that you wronged 20 years ago, and let me give you a couple of quick examples. You may have taken something from someone consciously and deliberately, stolen something from someone. It could have been something tangible, like a pocketbook or a wallet or something like that. It could have been a relationship that Bob was dating Sally. You wanted to date Bob, so you did whatever you did to get Bob, to take Bob away from Sally. And you did whatever you did has a whole wide range of things that, whatever it was, but you did, and you did it because you did it. You may have told a lie on somebody, a conscious, deliberate lie. I was at one of my job sites. The people watch these court shows, and like the paternity court show, are you the baby's father and all of that stuff like that. And it is painful for me because I can't wear my earplugs to listen to my own music because I'm engaged with the people in certain types of work. And so I just got to suck it up. But having said that, so you got a woman that comes in there, and the guy brings her in there because he doesn't think he's the baby's father. And so they go through all of this explanation of stuff. And then she says, well, it could be him or it could be Bob. And then what happens is, this is not an everyday thing because every day you'd be like, okay, which one is it? So they have to go a little bit further. And in one case, it was that the woman wasn't sure if it was Bob, but she acknowledged that it could have been Bob, it could have been Harry, it could have been James, it could have been Simon, it could have been Ricky, or it could have been Wally.
Good Lord.
So they did the paternity test, and come to find out that it wasn't any of the 6. The judge asked the girl, well, how many others were there? And she said 3. And they said, all right, we'll come back next week, whatever it was. Now, my point is this. In one of the shows, the guy said, it couldn't have been me. He says, because me and her were not in a relationship. Like the child was born I'm making this up. The child was born in 2020. we broke up back in 2015. It couldn't have been me. But somehow she dragged him in there. My point in bringing all of that up, and I'm a bit sorry I did now that I reflect upon it, is that, is that this woman consciously knew, deliberately, for whatever reason, and then probably just to get on TV, who knows? And in fact, the guy might have said, hey, say it's me so I can get on TV. I don't know, I don't care. All I'm trying to say is that in real life, outside of the television, you have people doing that type of thing, saying you're the father, or you're the, well, not so much you're the mother, but you're the father, you're the father, you're the father, consciously knowing that there's no way, but that, and so that would qualify as you deliberately, consciously wronging somebody, doing something wrong to somebody. And I'd like to think that if that type of situation happened to you and you were on the side of wronging someone else, that it was in fact 20 years ago. Don't let me see none of my members on these fraternity shows.
Oh Lord, help us.
The point being, I'm just giving some examples. When I asked you if you could think of someone that you might have wronged, if you did wrong somebody 20 years ago, it came to you. I didn't have to go through all that. It came in.
Mhm.
And in you're thinking about how you wronged that person 20 years ago, whatever length of time it was, if there was no, it doesn't matter that, well, after we broke up, they hit the lottery, so they're doing okay. Now, that's not the point. Do you understand what I'm saying? It doesn't matter what happened after that. It doesn't justify. And so in your heart and mind, if you can think this way, and if there is nobody that you've wronged, over the last 20 years, that's wonderful and fine. Just put yourself in that place. But because all I'm simply saying is that it should be, especially now that you know the Lord, it should be something that kind of like where we say that one thorn, that it ought to be something that now I'm not suggesting that you go out and find that person after 20 years and say, like I think in AA, there's the steps, and one of the steps I think is that you have to go back to the people that you've wronged and tell them that you wronged, something like that. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm not suggesting that at this moment. I am, of course, suggesting that you ask God forgiveness. But the point I'm trying to make is that, would you at least agree with me that to be the person that did the wrong or the person that was wrong, after 20 years, they both will have, generally speaking, there will be a different, they will have a different attitude. Now, if you have held a grudge against someone that did something to you 20 years ago, then if you are still angry about something that somebody did to you 20 years ago, I understand that. It must have been something horribly traumatic to you and devastating to you. The reverse is, if you did someone wrong 20 years ago, and depending on what that thing was, it may still from time to time pop into your head and cause you some level of distress and fear. Maybe not so much fear of retribution, but just like greed, like a heaviness, like a sorrow, especially knowing, listen, that maybe that person, no, they didn't hit the lottery. No, in fact, maybe they died, or maybe their life took a turn to the worse, or whatever. And you feel like, wow, did I do that? By and so on and so forth. Not to mention the fact that if you cheated somebody out of as an example, if you cheated somebody out of a car and swindled them and got some trickery and did some trickery and swindled out of a car, and then the car breaks down on you anyway, then you feel that much more grieved about it. But likewise, when you sold the car to somebody 20 years ago that you knew you should have driven it straight to the junkyard, but instead the guy said they would give, or the woman said she would give you $300, but you took that $300 and you knew that you couldn't get on that subway fast enough, because you knew that as soon as they turned the key and pulled it away from the curb, it was going to. You understand what I'm trying to say? So there should. It is not surprising that Jacob, after all of these years, still has a level of distress and fear that he's dealing with it. It is not surprising, and it is, in a manner of speaking, very manner of speaking, it is a little bit admirable that he acknowledges that what he did, that's what he's afraid. That's why he's afraid, because of what he did to Sarah. So he did. Thank God. It took 20 years, Sister Tina. It took 20 years
Okay.
for him to gain a conscience, if that's what it is. What?
I'm gonna come to Jacob's defense.
About what? What do we know?
You're saying it took 20 years. I would venture to guess that during those 20 years, he's carried that burden. He has.
Well, that's interesting. See, that's the interesting point. And the interesting point is we don't know that. But it's possible that he carried it. And it could be that because he carried it, he was going to stay there, and God told him to go back to his, it's like every time he thought about, I can't go back. I've done too much wrong. And yeah, it could be, or it could be, you see, one of the things about this type of situation is that, just like we were talking about why he split up the flocks, right? Why he split them up. You see, he said himself, just in case they get attacked, right? But somebody else said, I think Sister Nicole said, just to be nice and to say, this is for you or something like that. So we don't know the underlying motivation. God knows. We know what the scriptures say, and we can take it from there. But you're right. It could be that it bothered him over the 20 years, but because it bothered him, he said, so I'm not going back there. On the other hand, if it bothered him, why not go back sooner and try to make amends? Why not send a delegation to whatever? So yes, and my point, and therefore there's no way of, and I didn't mean to dump on Jacob from that perspective. All I was simply saying is that he was carrying at this point, this fear has come upon him because he's headed back to a place that he knows he's got a bad, reputation. Right.
Also, the thorn is more fear really than it is. Like, it doesn't really speak to me that, like, instead of feeling fear, if he thought that, if he felt very sorry for what he did, then that would be the thorn. But in the Bible it says the fear is the thorn. Well, it doesn't say the fear is the thorn, but it says the fear is what's bothering. Same thing. The fear is what's bothering him. But if the reason why he didn't come back was because he could have came, like she said, someone said he could have came back because he was sorry a long time ago, but it doesn't really say that he's coming back, that he's so sorry for what he did. He's saying that he fears for what he did.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and it's true. That's why I said we don't know. We can kind of guess, but there are all sorts of reasons why people do the things that they do, and if they can justify it under another reason.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, because what if, let's just say, he wasn't going back, God, he probably, who knows, maybe he never thought about it anymore.
Correct.
And now that he has to go back,
right,
it brought it up.
Right, absolutely. That was my point. Yeah.
But he might not have gave it a second.
Right. We were saying over the 20, Sister Beverly said that over the 20 years he might have been tortured. It's true. But over the 20 years, he may not have been fazed at all. Yeah. He didn't even cross his mind.
But now, faced with going back, confronting this situation again, yeah, now I have to.
Right, now I got.
Now I'm feeling kind of
anxious.
What am I? Going to go back?
Right,
to?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So we do see that he is anxious. We see he is distressed and distraught and afraid and so on and so forth. That much we do know. And we also know that he, yes, he prays to God, which is always a nice idea. And he's asking God ultimately to not let his brother Esau kill him and kill his family or take his family, whatever it might be. So he reminds God of his promise, God's promise to him, just in case God had forgotten it. It might have slipped God's mind. Okay.
Over 20 years.
Yeah, over the 20 years, right. Okay, so we pick up from verse 13.
Can
Someone.
I just add one more
Yeah.
thing? Not only did he have the fear of what he was carrying, whether he was carrying it or not, whether he gave it a thought or not, but also the fact that he also had the concerns or fear for not only, don't forget, he's not coming back by himself, he's coming back with now a family.
Right.
2 wives, children, and so I would imagine that even elevated
His anxiety.
fear.
Yeah. Yeah. And hence the reason why he sent the delegation, half of his stuff ahead to test the waters. Right?
That's the way, yeah.
Okay, let's keep going. Verse 13, someone.
Verse 13. So he lodged there that night and took what came to his hand as a present for Esau his brother, 200 female goats and 20 male goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 milk camels with their colts, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys and 10 hogs. Then he delivered them to the hand of his servants, every dove by itself, and said to his servants, pass over before me and put some distance between successive droves, sorry. Oh yeah, let me go back, verse 16. Then he delivered them to the hand of his servants, every drove by itself, and said to his servants, pass over before me and put some distance between successive droves. And he commanded the first one, saying, when Esau my brother meets you and asks you, saying, to whom do you belong and where are you going? Whose are these in front of you? Then you shall say, they are your servant Jacob's. It is a present sent to my lord Esau, and behold, he also is behind us. So he commanded the second, the third, and all who followed the droves, saying, in this manner you shall speak to Esau when you find him. And also say, behold, your servant Jacob is behind us. For he said, I will appease him with the present that goes before me, and afterward I will see his face. Perhaps he will accept me. So the present went on over before him, but he himself lodged that night in the camp.
Okay, so so he's put together these different herds, these different droves, and what is their purpose?
The kind of sweeten.
So yeah.
And but yes, and what are they? Yes, that's correct. What I'm getting at is that these are gifts, right? Right. They're not just going to say, this is where we belong to Jacob's tribe, and we're headed to wherever, and that's it. They actually are coming as they are the gift.
He can keep them.
He can keep them, as opposed to just passing through and says, "Oh, okay, all right, well that's good." But you said he's going this way, okay, and they're going about their business. So this is done in that way. Okay, Jacob clearly is having what today I think we might call a panic, a panic attack or an anxiety attack. The thing is that in this particular case, in his Maybe it's because, have any of you ever had a panic attack or anxiety attack? I've had. And
Anxiety.
the thing, yeah. And the thing is that, that in my position, having an anxiety attack or a panic attack just means that you kind of sit there and freak out and so on and so forth, right? So I may be understating what Jacob had. I'm sure he had a panic attack, but an anxiety attack or whatever you want to call it. But in addition to just sitting there and crying and just freaking out and stuff like that, he's now doing stuff. He's doing stuff he's doing stuff. The point being, he's doing this stuff in panic, right? He's doing this stuff in fear. He's doing this stuff with the hopes of, and he's doing this stuff, as Sister Pat pointed out, he's doing this stuff after having reminded God, after praying and showing forth, that he knows the Lord is so on. And yes, in case you were going to say it, yes, just like us, yes, I know that. The point is that the extent of what Jacob is doing is, or at least for me, it's way beyond, listen, what I can do. You know what I mean? Like I may have had an anxiety attack about getting a job. I'm making this up. But so I went for the interview and I'm waiting to find out if I get the job, and I'm having a panic and anxiety and all that. But all I could do is sit there and just, Jacob, on the other hand, he's sending the gifts to the employer, to the potential employer. He's doing stuff like that. And that, so you see, right.
It's like I've had anxiety about test results, like after.
Yes.
So it's like I would then offer to pay money, like tell me,
yes, right.
I'll give you this, I'll give you
Right.
that. You just tell me right now.
Right. Perfect example, right. They say the test is gonna take 24 hours.
Yeah.
Or can I pay a little extra to have it?
I'll give you this. I'll
Right.
offer stuff, like if I have a certain type of job.
Yes.
I'll put a word, depending
Yes.
on what,
Right.
stuff like that.
And that's what is happening here. I don't know if in the case that you described, the answer is yes or no. If they have a rapid test that you could take and ask you for another $40, yeah. But yes, but that's something like that you possibly can do something. In this particular case, what he's concerned about is if his brother is going to kill him or not. I doubt that any of us have had anxiety over that. And even if we did have anxiety over that, there is nothing we could do except sit there and worry, because it's not like we said, well, I could send him some goats and maybe he'll be happy with that or something like that. You see what I'm trying to say? So Jacob he's really freaking out. He's headed for a nervous breakdown. He's headed for a nervous breakdown.
And he's surrendering all that he can
to try to mitigate or try to avoid.
And then yet still don't know if he's
if it's going
to be acceptable.
He's putting others at risk, right? He's putting others at risk because remember, he told them, tell him that you work for me. He might wait, right? He may not wait to hear, and I'm gonna get these belong to you. They may say, Jacob, kill him. That type of thing.
I remember King David, when all his men wanted to do was pass through this man's land, and he wouldn't let him. He was going to kill everything.
That's right.
Every male.
That's
It
right.
wasn't even so.
Yeah. Sometimes it's true. Sometimes we can snap. And as quiet as it's kept, even us who normally live these mild, passive, whatever. But there is a point where and we don't. There is a point where even we can just before we know, we like what Princess says, we black out.
Go black.
We just black out, right? And it can happen. And it
Yeah,
does
it's
happen.
real.
I assure you that the
It's
jailhouses are filled with those who
blacked out.
blacked out. Now, I'm not talking about they using it as an excuse, say, oh, I don't know what happened, but I'm talking about that you get so angry. Have you ever been so angry that you not necessarily blacked out, but you just go,
Like
you ever get so angry that you feel yourself
start
shaking?
like you're gonna just explode.
The fact of the matter is that Jacob is at this point, and he's at this point. I don't know. Well, I guess I do know. Let me say it this way. Jacob is dealing with this situation, and he's dealing with this situation like over a period of time. You know what I mean? We don't know how much time it is, but for every minute that passes, more butterflies, more stress, more of a weight on his shoulders. Yeah, go ahead, Sister Nicole.
Also, he's doing all of this, and he just prayed instead of knowing that God is gonna help him. He's still going through this anxiety attack, and I just pray that one day I won't go through any anxiety attacks, and then I remember that God is there. God's got me.
Absolutely. The thing is that this is why I was saying earlier. We know that it's not what we're supposed to do, and we don't want to follow in Jacob's footsteps in that way, and so on and so forth, but we do. And one of the things that I'm a pastor, I'm a preacher, and I understand all of that. But at the same rate, the way that we deal with our circumstances very often includes prayer, but is not only prayer. Okay.
Yes.
And this is why I was getting a little wound up before, because too often we are told, and hence the reason why I said, I'm a pastor and all that, but too often we are told that all you got to do is pray. There's a song that says, or maybe, well, it is definitely a song, but I've heard it commented, if you're gonna worry, then don't pray. And if you're going to pray, then don't worry. Well, that sounds all snazzy and cute. But no. The fact of the matter is that prayer, our communication with God, is vital in times of stress and anxiety and depression and trouble. And so it is absolutely vital. That is like our lifeline. But there are other things that go along with bringing us back. Do you understand what I'm saying? There are other things that go along with getting us back whole, or relieving that anxiety, relieving that stress. There are other things that added to prayer will help us to refocus and to get ourselves back to a point where we don't have the anxiety and we don't have the stress. What were you going to say?
Yeah. I was just thinking.
If she changes the subject, remind me to come back.
Just the other night, I was upset, and then it was nighttime. I was upset.
Mm-hmm.
I was crying, and I was praying.
Yeah.
And you know that within 2 seconds of praying, I stopped crying, and it just felt like a whole load was waved off of me.
Okay, that is great and wonderful. It is also not 100% the case.
Okay.
It doesn't happen 100% of the time.
Okay.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Listen, if you can pray and you can get back,
Thank God.
you lift your hand and say, Lord, I thank you. But what I'm going, for this lesson's sake, I'm going to the point where you've done that. You've prayed and you've prayed and you've
I can
prayed.
speak to that. I have something coming up, an appointment. I am very anxious about it. I dread it, and I'm really anxious about it. I pray on it, but it's not enough. So what has helped me when I come to church and I sing and I hear the testimonies, you know, it helps. It helps to diminish it, but it doesn't happen like that.
Right.
And then I'm filled up. I'm, you know,
Yeah.
you know, but it'll creep in
Yeah.
a little bit
Yeah.
until that date comes,
Yeah.
which is the last of the month.
Right.
I don't know. I'm trying.
Yes.
I will keep on
Absolutely.
like I do when I'm not feeling anxious. I will continue to hear the word and and hope that as it comes closer, I'll be less
Yes. Yes.
filled with it. But I'm there.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, I'm with you. And likewise, anybody else?
I'm there.
Anybody? Okay. The thing is that I said there are other things that go hand in hand with the prayer in order to and they vary and they are and if you're waiting for me to give you a list of what those things are, then I'm sorry to disappoint you because I can't give you a list of what those things are. I can tell you that there are different things that work for different people. When you get stressed and when you get so anxious that you find yourself, just knotted up and crying in some cases, and someone's tossing and turning and stuff like that. If you can take yourself back to those times, or if you're already there, what is important for you to do is not overwhelm yourself. Listen to me. Not overwhelm yourself by trying to get to, so to speak, hopefully you'll understand. Don't overwhelm yourself in trying to get to tomorrow.
Just like stand still, you mean?
I'll explain what I mean.
One day at a time.
Well, that's my point. Not one day at a time. That's my point. That's my point because I got a letter in the mail this morning at 10 o'clock that caused me great stress. So I got to get tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? I got to get through today. Right. That's my point.
Okay,
Right. That's what I'm saying. Right. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
The idea of, and I overwhelm myself, and you will overwhelm yourself trying to get to tomorrow. Let's use that example. Yeah, you're trying to get to tomorrow.
Just to get to that date.
Right, and it becomes overwhelming for us because tomorrow, even if tomorrow is literally 24 hours from now, that's a long time from right. I got that letter at 10 o'clock this morning. And that letter or that phone call, whatever it was that I got this morning, it just immediately put me in a place. Somebody might have gotten terminated this morning at 10 o'clock, and now they're already trying to figure out what my rent is due in the first of the month. You see what I'm trying to say? And we're at the 14th.
Yeah.
But we're already thinking about that, and we become so overwhelmed and so bogged down with what ifs and so on and so forth, and that we find that we can't function. And so what I'm suggesting to you, and so we pray, but very often in that anxious state, when we pray, let me talk about me. When I pray in those anxious states, very often my mind keeps drifting back to the situation, and so I've done a lesson some time ago about tips on handling anxiety and depression, and there were like 11 tips, and it's out there somewhere. One of the points that I'm trying to make is that we overwhelm ourselves. One of the tips is not to overwhelm ourselves. When we bite off 24 hours. If I got the letter at 9 o'clock this morning, when I'm trying to get to tomorrow morning, let me give you an even better example, better, but an equal example that I think you'll appreciate. I got the letter at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning. So anybody I needed to call and so on and so forth, I can't call them until Monday. You see what I'm trying to say? So all I'm getting at is that so we are overwhelmed and we are anxious and we find ourselves similar to what Jacob is, not because we are so focused on, once I call him, I can straighten this out, but I can't straighten it out until Monday. So up until now, I still got, you understand?
Yeah.
So we bogged out. We've got to get through, unlike what you were saying about one day at a time, which is nice, and the song is wonderful.
Maybe that's why I'm so
But yeah, listen, the fact is that we've got to get past just that, that moment.
Yeah.
And that moment might be just a cup. Sister Nicole prayed, and that was the end of that.
I gotta
Somebody
wait
else.
2 weeks.
Huh?
I have to wait 2 weeks.
Well, the 2 weeks is when the thing is. I'm trying to tell you that you don't have to wait 2 weeks to get out of the anxiety. You don't have to wait 2 weeks to shed yourself of the fear and the depression and the stress. No. Well, see, this is my point. You see, this is my point. Go ahead and say what you're going to say.
Well, also I find that listening to religious music helps.
Yes.
There's a song that goes, "Let go, let God," and what I get out of it is that I can't do it alone, and God is going to handle it.
Right. To your point, and that is one of the ways that we can get past the moment. You see that we've got to get past the moment. I would assure you that it is enough. Not listening to that particular song. That I'm talking about getting past the moment. When, for example, you get the letter in the morning at 9 o'clock, you go through all of these different emotions and have all of these different anxiety. When they tell you on a Friday that your service is no longer needed, and now you want to go home and get on the computer and start searching for a job, but you know that it's not until Monday that you're going to get any response or whatever it is. The point is, you've got to get past the moment. If you can think about, talk about your situation, something the end of the month that you need to deal with, and you're just going through whatever you're going through to get to that point, right? Every minute of every day that you already have gone through, and the next 2 weeks are not filled with anxiety and depression. And you just said it yourself. You said, well, what I do is I come to service and this, and then I do that. I might listen to some music and it does that, and so on and so forth, and it does this, right? And hence, there are still moments and times when it all seems to flood back upon you. Yes. And what I'm saying to you is, that's all right. Get past the moment. Get past the moment. Because when you try to find a way